Hi, I'm Sydney Politzer.
And I am Aidan Young-Sgoutas.
And you're watching Scobuff Sports from Vegas. We have had an interesting tournament for the Pac-12 men's basketball so far, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, so here is how the bracket has kind of turned out. So, were you at all surprised with some of the results of these last few games here?
I mean, yes. We can throw up our personal brackets right now, but it looks like yesterday was a pretty rough day for both of our brackets, both of our finalizing teams, USC and Washington State, got knocked out. I think it's more surprising your pick got knocked out because I don't know how many people saw ASU upsetting USC in this tournament.
Yes, I was definitely surprised to see how fast ASU was able to kind of start their game, and they just had such control and kind of poise when they were stepping on the court, at least to say, and I think that caught the Trojans off guard, and especially being a number 3 seed, that was the only upset that occurred yesterday, so all the teams that had a bye except USC made it through to the semifinals when we'll be playing tonight. Let's talk a little bit about the UCLA-Oregon matchup. So we got the number 1 seed versus the number 4 seed. Oregon was...
That was a really interesting game.
It was
yesterday.
An interesting game, yeah. And they kind of got by the skin of their teeth, to say. It was pretty close, but I would also say that UCLA also kind of had a pretty close game with Colorado, and it's difficult because everybody is preparing because UCLA is the number 2 team in the country here, but they sure have their hands full, and I would say that having their number 1 defensive player of the year in Pac-12, Jalen Clark, out with a leg injury has definitely set them back. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. I think it's interesting because while yes, UCLA obviously, they won in their matchup against Colorado yesterday. I don't know. I think that despite it being close and Colorado was up at the end of the first half, I think that UCLA is still the stronger team, and I just think that Colorado really just held their own and just put up a fight. But UCLA's defense is still really strong. In the press conference, Tad Boyle even said that the main issue that they had was that they just couldn't get to the free throw line, and yes, UCLA's defense was still very tight, and I think that we're going to be seeing that again tonight. The coach made it very clear that they kind of saw what needed to be tightened, and they're going to have those, because UCLA, obviously, it was their first game yesterday, and so when they step on the court today, it will not be their first game, although Washington State, Oregon also won't be their first day.
Yeah, very true. And again, we were kind of talking about this in our first show when we were making our brackets. UCLA is a championship program. This is not their first dance. They know what they're doing. And not to mention that they have Jamie Jaquez as the offensive player of the year in the Pac-12. And the Colorado Buffaloes did a pretty good job containing him for the most part, at least in the first half of their matchup yesterday. But I think that he has a big target on his back, at least to say, and I think teams know this and are going to try to do so. But not to mention, Amari Bailey really stepped up into his role yesterday for the UCLA Bruins. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how Oregon prepares for this matchup as well as how UCLA responds. And I think UCLA kind of let the Buffaloes control the tempo of the game in the first half, but completely took control, especially by Tiger Campbell, who is one of the most dangerous point guards, I would argue, in the Pac-12 tournament.
I think that's a fair title. But I also think that the same could be said about Oregon. Their matchup yesterday, Washington State was killing them in the first half, and which I was personally surprised by. I know that I had Washington State as the dark horse in this, but they were really just putting Oregon to shame. But then in the second half, Oregon just really stepped up. They were getting the ball down the court, they were making their shots, and they had a really impressive run. So, I don't know, I think that it could really be anyone's game, especially just based on how both teams played yesterday.
Yeah, I also think it was interesting just watching that game. Oregon was able to get 17 points off of second chance shots, and that was something that Colorado just couldn't achieve against the UCLA Bruins. So it's either that the Oregon Ducks know how to get big boards on the offensive end, or UCLA just does a really good job boxing out and keeping guys out of the paint. So I guess that'll be another interesting thing to see in this matchup.
Well, I mean, that's what I've always been saying. I'm a big rebound guy. I think that rebounds are really a make or break in the game, and just UCLA had more control in terms of repossessions in their game, and the same could be said about Oregon. So that's why both of them progressed.
Well, we have some interesting matchups for the Pac-12 semifinals. We'll keep you posted with some in-game updates. But in the meantime, I'm Sydney Politzer.
And I'm Aidan Young-Sgoutas.
And this is Go Buff Sports in Vegas.